Get the agenda on the screen last month, first round.
Yeah, I don't remember what we did. For the plans?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he might have just pulled it up on there.
We did the last time, yeah.
Yeah.
It was excellent, yeah. Yeah. Okay, we're good, okay. Good evening. Welcome to this evening's Committee of Adjustment meeting. Council of the Municipality of East Ferris has empowered this committee to make decisions on minor variance and consent to sever applications on their behalf. The committee is made up of 5 citizen members and 2 members of council. The members are as follows. Or would you start off, please?
Lauren Roy Akers, I'm on council.
Steve Austin.
Frank Corbett. Bill Volk.
Stephanie Holmes.
Carrie Hanselman, staff.
Jerry Kelly on council.
And Greg Curtin, staff.
Thank you. As required under the Planning Act and pursuant to policy, the committee is holding a public meeting prior to making a decision on the proposed applications. The Committee of Adjustment has not yet made any decisions on these matters, and all comments received prior to this evening's meeting, as well as comments received tonight during the meeting, will be considered in the decision. The committee makes our decisions based on the criteria outlined in the Planning Act that corresponds to the specific application type. The process will be as follows. I'll ask the applicant to present their application and the order listed on the agenda, and we have a chair available for you. The committee will ask any questions they have of the applicant. Staff will then provide their comments about the application and give an overview of correspondence that's been received. Members of the public will present and answer questions if needed. We allow for a 10-minute maximum time limit on all public comments to the committee. We will then move to a motion to approve or refuse the application. We'd ask that everyone be respectable in their presentation and comments should be related directly to the application. If any committee members, have a conflict of interest in regards to any items on tonight's agenda, would they please declare it now? Seeing none, we will now move to the first item on the agenda. We'll call the meeting to order and the adoption of the agenda.
Seconder. Right, the draft agenda presented to the committee and dated May 2nd, 2024 be hereby adopted as circulated.
All in favor? Accepting the minutes of the previous meeting, mover and a seconder, please.
And Stephanie. That the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held April 17th, 2024 be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, chair's comments, welcome. We have an early season this year. The 2-4 weekend was early. Flies were early this weekend. Anyway, long story short, we'll get on with the meeting. We've got a fair size agenda. Any ratepayers delegation, none for this meeting. We'll have our first public hearing, A 2024-05. Alan and Lynn Amiot, 770 Roulette Road. Brad Amiot, on behalf of them, is present. If you could step forward, please. The owners are applying to permit a variance to zoning bylaw 2021-60. The applicants are seeking a minor variance to permit the following. In addition to the existing detached garage, which will result in a total floor area of 181.2 meters squared. Whereas zoning bylaw number 2021-60 permits 111.5 meters squared. A reduction in the required setback between an accessory structure and the main building. 1.56 meters proposed, whereas bylaw 2021-60 requires 2 meters.
Yeah, so pretty much just looking to extend the garage, even with the front of the house. Have that extra square footage to it.
Okay. Is there anything else, Brad?
Pretty straightforward, I think.
Any questions from the committee?
You're not proposing business in the future?
So the back half was already approved.
It's already approved.
2004. This half is just a personal garage for toys.
which is always nice to see.
We see a lot of that, you know.
But it's nice for individuals to have a larger garage, in my opinion, only because you don't get everything left aside and becomes junky.
I agree. I agree. Any other thoughts from the committee? Any questions? Any concerns? To grant approval? Okay. No other questions, staff? Would you provide an overview, please?
Sure. So we didn't receive any correspondence on this application at all. As far as my staff report goes, basically I was just looking at any potential impacts of the increase in size, and there really don't seem to be any in this case. It's set back far from the road. The existing garage, the new addition is not increasing in width, which is kind of what you would see from the road. It's even with the front of the house, it'll all kind of be proportional. And as far as the question about business, actually, so our zoning bylaw does allow certain types of home-based businesses in garages, such as like small woodworking shops, cabinet making, that type of thing. So there would be no issues with them doing that with the like expanded garage area if they chose to do either. Basically the expansion looks proportional to the lot. It doesn't have any impact on the adjacent neighbors, and there's no concerns from my end.
Okay, thank you. Any members of the public want to have any questions, concerns? Seeing none, if everyone's in agreement, we have a motion, please.
Mover and a seconder, please. Lauren and Bill. That minor variance application A 2024-05 submitted by Alan and Lynn Amiot requesting a minor variance to permit an addition to the existing detached garage, which will result in a total floor area of 181.2 square meters, whereas zoning bylaw 2021-60 permits 111.5 square meters, and a reduction in the required setback between an accessory structure and the main building of 1.56 meters, whereas bylaw 2021-60 requires 2 meters be approved.
All in favor? Thank you. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
The next we have A 2024-07. Eben McKinnon, 953 South Shore Road. The owner is applying to permit a variance to zoning bylaw 2021-60. The applicant seeking a minor variance to construct a boathouse with an increased permitted floor area of 55.7 meters squared, whereas bylaw 2021-60 permits 45 meters squared. Evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had the privilege of meeting some of you, Lauren and Steve and Greg. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Evan McKinnon. I purchased this property in September 2021. It's the only residence I own. We rent a small place in Guelph, where I'm from. Primarily, this is my main residence. What I'm applying for is I have extra drawings here, but I assume you won't have computers, but basically it's like a carport, only it's for a boat. It's on the land, it's not on the water. I do have the Ministry of the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority has been out, seen the site, and they've approved it. I have the DIA permit. Only 2 requirements that they put in the permit. One was I had to be back 4 meters from the water. Depending where the water is, I'm over 4 meters today, but it's those of you that live on the lake, it's tough low right now. I was probably a little closer than 4 meters in 1st of April. And the other requirement is that I put the black or the cloth around, which I've already done, to keep any sediment from going in water. So that's been completed, Steve. I think it was already there when you were there. As far as sightline, I wouldn't mind. I'll just show you briefly here. That is the view. If you look straight east, so any of my neighbors will have to go out onto their docks to even see the structure. The structure is marked with the yellow tape there, so it doesn't interfere with their view.
And most of your neighbors are set well back.
They are, and the same with the neighbor to the east. There's only one neighbor to the east that can even see it if he goes out onto his dock. The structure is 30 feet long and 20 feet wide. To be within the bylaw, I'd have to make it 16.5 feet wide, so it's 3.5 feet wider than the existing bylaw for a whole house. I don't think that anyone from the water is gonna know it. It's basically a gazebo that a boat can go up into on the railway track. It's called the Marine Railway. So the cement pad is the same size that it's proposed for the building. Yeah, it's gonna be constructed by DLS Carpentry. Some of you will know Tyler Ellis. It's not something my brother-in-law and I are gonna hammer up in a weekend. It's gonna be professionally done. You've been to my property, it's very well maintained. And this area is gonna continue to be maintained as well. And I'm glad to answer any questions any of you have.
Okay. Any of the committee have a question? Frank?
So you're saying that Mattawa Conservation is telling you to stay back 4 meters from the shoreline?
Correct.
Is there anything mentioned about fisheries and oceans? Because you're that far away from the water and your building is not on the water, I would assume that it would fall under the fisheries and oceans.
Well, I didn't ask them why they wanted 4 meters. Her concern was that I put up some plastic mesh to keep any silt during the construction period. If we had a rain like we did this afternoon, so it'll get into the water, which is tough for the fish. But that's only an issue while the construction's underway. That was her main concern, was but she asked me how far back, and I suggested a space, and she said up about 4 meters, and we shook hands and agreed. I didn't ask her why she suggested 4 meters, but 4 meters works really well. The shoreline there is quite flat. I don't even have to knock any land out. It's all a natural.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the 4 meters, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just wondering if fisheries and oceans need to be advised in regards to building
Was
on the
that
water like that.
different than, I would say, Mattawa Conservation Authority?
One's the government.
Yeah, so usually the regulatory divide there is on water structures versus anything on land. So a lot of times you'll see Department of Fishery and Oceans regulations administered through, in most cases, the MNR. And that's for things that are either on the lake bed or floating on the water, or anything that's off of the land. So on the land, it's our zoning bylaw that's the primary regulator, as well as the Conservation Authority's 30-meter buffer area for their regulated area.
I was just wondering if they had to get involved.
Sure. Any concerns? Stephanie? No? Anybody else? Okay, could you give an overview, Greg, please?
Sure. So again, we have no correspondence in this file. We do have a copy of the DIA permit from the Conservation Authority. We don't, some of you may be aware that the Conservation Authority has had some significant staffing changes recently. So we don't have comments from them on any of our applications tonight. But we do have a copy of the DIA permit and they approved this location as the applicant stated. As far as the location goes, so in my report, I outlined some of the brief history of boathouses coming into our zoning bylaw and how we decided to deal with them. The reason why you'll notice the 45-meter floor area is the maximum is that there was some concern by this committee and council at the time that a boathouse is the same size as a garage might be like very impactful on the lake. So that was the rationale in limiting the size. However, that being said, we're looking at not a full solid boathouse structure. It's more of a boat port with open sides, open front in a lot of cases. So it'll have a lot less of that, massing impact that you might find with a bigger solid structure. It's also not significantly oversized to what the bylaw permits. And given that they have a permit from the Conservation Authority, I don't have any concerns with it.
Thank you. Any members of the public want to chime in? Anything to say? Any comments? Concerns? Okay, everybody here?
Yes, one question. So if Evan or he sells and somebody looks at it and wants to to you know, create walls on it, would that be an issue? Like, we are sort of looking, because I was out there, I think it'll look less impactful because it is a gazebo. Is that an issue? Do they have to get a building permit for that? And
Yeah, so they may have to get a building permit. It would depend on what the regulations say and what the scope of their work was. That would be, yeah, a question for our chief building official. That being said, the zoning bylaw looks only at floor area, so if they needed a building permit, they could get it without additional planning approval, so they could theoretically close it in, so.
It's for all the
Lauren, seconder, please. Steve and Lauren. That minor variance application A 2024-07 submitted by Evan McKinnon requesting a minor variance to permit the construction of a boathouse with an increased permitted floor area at 55.7 square meters. Whereas zoning bylaw 2021-60 permits 45 square meters. Be approved.
All in favor? It's passed. Thank you, Evan.
Appreciate everyone's time tonight. Thank you.
Next, we have A 2024-08, pardon me, Jules Perlin and Jessica Farmer, 34 Marina Road. I know where that is. The owners are applying to permit a variance to zoning bylaw 2021-60. The applicants are seeking a minor variance to permit a reduction in the required setback from the water. The applicant is seeking 14 meters setback from the main dwelling, whereas 30 meters required. The applicant is also seeking approval for a reduced setback for a deck of 10.65 meters, whereas 27.5 meters is required. Welcome.
So basically, we're renovating our family that I'm the fifth generation to live on that property, and my kids will visit it. And it needs a major renovation, and we're hoping to add an addition, but because we need the regularity of the shoreline, that an addition directly to the piping and so we're seeking setback the addition, then there's back for the dog. Have already been in contact with the Idaho Conservation Authority, got all sorted out, so we're just here doing minor variants.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Bill, you have any concerns?
More so distance, is it, vegetation there, is it
It's just,
one?
yeah.
So it's not filtering off into the lake.
Good. Stephanie?
No questions, no, thanks.
It's a well-established, an old farmhouse. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what do you do with the existing concrete block garage? Because it didn't look too good.
Yeah, we're gonna try to do salvage it for now until we get the cost of this kind of figured out and then. That makes the problem.
Then approach that one, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's on the list of things to do.
Yeah, but, yeah.
so are you keeping the existing house there and building onto it?
Yeah, it's got an addition directly to the side.
Okay, okay. Because it didn't look like in great shape when I was out there. Is that like,
It's like over 100 years old.
Okay.
So we did cut them in to make sure that structure, the actual house. was valuable.
Yeah.
And
I've had an engineer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just take a look at it,
okay,
not concerned about the structure of the house.
okay,
prior to me back then with stuff that stay with hardier.
okay, okay, good. Well, and it looks like, you know, what you're going to do is going to really make it
Look much better than.
clean, yes, yeah, and make it, yeah, so I just,
It's a rough shape right now. Bit of a loss.
and where's the septic on this? Is it,
Yes, we just had the septic redone last year. It is behind Like it's not towards like it's behind the house.
Okay. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Frank, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Overview, please.
Okay, we received no correspondence again, although I am aware of the conservation authority permit on file. I mean, we've kind of already covered the situation here. We're dealing with an old dwelling on an old lot that has an existing kind of layout without a lot of vegetative cover nearby, very well-established grades and kind of lawn area. And they're looking to extend off the side in a way that makes sense from a building perspective. And because of the angle of the shoreline, it means that corner of the dwelling ends up being closer. So that's ultimately why they need that additional reduction in setback, because our zoning bylaw does allow you to build at the existing setback from the water, but because of the orientation, it means they're a bit closer. And then that same exact rationale applies to the deck that they're putting along the side and the front, because it's obviously forced closer as well. I think it is going to look better. I think it'll be a good regeneration for the lot, and I don't think that there's any concerns with the development concept generally.
Okay. One comment I really liked you in your presentation was that you made to us in writing, was it fit into the general neighborhood? Because the houses and cottages back then were built 70, 80 years ago. So the farmhouse was well established when I was younger. At any rate, everyone's in agreement? We have a mover and a seconder, please.
What's that house there? There's another cabin towards the back. Is that driveway that's just slightly in front of your property? As you come down Marina Road, your house is there and there's a driveway right on the edge.
So it's small, and she has three, like, two houses and a cottage on the same lot.
Okay,
That makes-
so they have an access across your property to get to it.
Yeah. It's, I mean,
Yeah. And they're all happy. They're all happy with this.
yeah, it's been better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It joins up with Loon Lane off.
Right, yeah.
Anything else? That's it. Mover and a seconder, please. Edmund? Okay. Two.
Minor variance application A 2024-08 submitted by Rose Crown and Jessica Farmer requesting a minor variance to permit a reduction in the required setback in the water of 14 meters for the main dwelling, whereas 30 meters is required, and a reduced setback for a deck of 10.65 meters, whereas 27.5 meters is required, be approved.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Moving right along. We have B 2024-10, B 2024-12, Tog Geomatics on behalf of 100-328-150 Ontario Inc., 644 Deerland Road. The purpose of the requested consent is to allow for the creation of 3 new lots. Good evening.
Mr. Chair, Steve McCarthy with Pellet. The proposal we're looking at this evening, our clients purchased this property, which had sat vacant for about a year on 644 Deerland Road. There is an existing dwelling and a number of structures. As you can see, our geomatics team went out and tied the structures in terms of setbacks and property lines and things like that. The new owners wish to create a couple of lots off of what remains there. We're looking at severing off 68 meters of this far westerly lot with the existing dwelling. There are a number of structures that will be removed. There's some tear downs, including those 2 sheds. The other ones are going to be evaluated and to see if they can be saved or salvaged, but if not, they will be removed as well. So the proposal that you have in front of you is consent application. The severed lot will be 1.27 hectares in size with 68 meters of frontage, as I've said. Severed lots number 2 and 3 will each be 1.11 hectares in size with just over 60 meters of frontage. The As noted, the sheds will be removed and the proposed retained or severed lots will be for future residential use, hopefully future residential construction. I'm sure Mr. Curtin will go over the policy framework, but these represent infill opportunities where there's no requirement for the extension of roads. There's no requirement for the extension of any municipal services to service the proposed builds. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. There is a wetland pocket in the back that is identified on the photo and on our drawing, but the purpose or the proposal is to construct much closer to Durham Road, as is in character with the rest of the rural residential uses on both sides of the road in that area. I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
So you're saying that there's a pool of water in behind?
Yeah.
And Manawa Conservation is aware of your proposal?
Yeah, it's a pocket. I don't know if our reports are circulated very normally, but it's a pocket of trapped water. It's approximately 170 meters. So if we're looking at the depth of the properties that are being proposed at 185 meters, it takes it right up to the shore of the pond, if you will, which certainly any of the septic, any of the wells, any of the construction will be set back well from that edge and within that 30-meter buffer of that pond. Beyond that 30-meter buffer and closer to Durham Road.
Okay. Any other concerns, Frank?
What feeds that pond?
Sorry?
What feeds the pond?
Knowingly, it's just part of
Is it a beaver dam?
it possibly. It's hard to get anyone to confirm yea or nay as to whether it's been beavers that's caused the damage over the years, but in this case, it's been existing for quite some time.
So if the water continues to rise, could it infiltrate the septic beds that they're being proposed?
Actually, I don't know if you had an opportunity to go to the site, but
No, I didn't.
okay, the structure on the far west is at an elevation that's higher than the rest of the property, so I would suggest that if there was any sort of, overflow, or it would be going to the existing residences that are there in Durham, actually follow the flow of the hill that it's on. I wouldn't, I'd be speculating, Frank, but it seems that way from the topography.
Okay. Steve or nothing? 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 Overview, please.
Sure. So we didn't receive any correspondence on this one either. Nothing from North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority, but what as Mr. McArthur said, I mean, we have access to floodplain mapping from the Conservation Authority, and we're able to look at that and see what the extent that they've estimated the floodplain to be. And it does touch the back portions of these properties, but when you do measurements, there's ample room for septic systems to be installed. I mean, I'm not concerned about their inability to install a septic system on any of these lots based on the mapping that we have access to. The only thing that's a bit out of the ordinary for this one is that I did recommend one additional condition, and that was the confirmation that the structures they've indicated that are being removed are in fact removed before the severance finalizes. The reason why we would want to do that is because there's a structure straddling the property line for one, and then we would be approving a severance for lots that don't comply with their zoning bylaw because of that 0-meter setback.
Okay.
So that's the only new thing about this one. Otherwise, it's a fairly typical lot layout. It meets our minimum standards. It makes sense given the context of the area, and I have no other concerns.
You're fine with the addition?
Yes, as I said, it's been unused for about a year now, so once our clients have the opportunity to get in there, that those will definitely be removed. One of them straddles the proposed lot line, so they'll be the first to go.
Okay, all right. Everyone's in agreement? Or another question?
Question, I guess, in the report, there was with the separate, so I'm just sort of looping this into the next item on our agenda, is that we've got 7 lots that have been already severed in East Ferris. We've got 3 here, and then there's going to be 13. So that means we only have 2 lots left to be severed. So and I guess that's where there's a concern. If we only have 25 lots, is there a unfairness, I guess, for lack of a better word, that there's so many lots tied up with one company?
I don't think so. And there's a bit of give and take to that 25. I mean, there's consideration of the kind of give and take of year to year and what our overall development goals are. And we do say that we'll have X number of lots in any type of draft plan at a time. So sometimes we kind of ebb and flow a bit year to year and try to average out at that. So I don't think that there's really any concern either about one individual person. It's a first come, first served basis. And if we need to defer other ones in the future, then we would look at doing that.
David?
What's the ebb and flow of lots? Like how much, could we go to 30 if somebody?
We went up to, when we had boom years, we were into the 40s, and then we've had ones that are much lower.
What?
We've, this committee, I've been on the committee for, this is the new term, it's going back 6 terms, 7 terms ago. We've never been concerned with ownership. What we've been concerned with is following the official plan. Where, in other words, the size of the lots, where they're located, and their access to roads. But ownership has never come into question, quite frankly. So you get developers, they'll buy land and they develop the land if they can, but they have to follow the official plan. And the official planning, which is what this is about. It's never been about ownership, quite frankly.
Well, I guess I'm just, we've had some people come to us this year, right, wanting to sever land for their children, right? So if we have this official plan that says 25 and we have to stick to it to have somebody take lots of those severed properties, it's not. I want to be open for severance for all of these fairs, right? So I just asking the question.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But good too, your official plan was edited by and approved by the province last update. And a lot of the language that was very firm in it, this is what Mr. Curtin was speaking about, has been changed. And if you read the section 9:15-214, and it says specifically to generally permit a maximum, and it uses words like that where it leaves it at the discretion of the committee and ultimately council and staff to make a decision on how much. And and as Greg said, at times it's exceeded that. And I think we've also done again, I agree with the chair that it doesn't really matter. Each one is on the merits of planning and not the owner, but we have done a number of severances maybe 4 individuals. Mr. Point comes to mind. We just did that one a couple of weeks ago. We carved 2 lots off. So we don't have a lot of them coming to us at this point. It's getting late in the season, believe it or not, in terms of lot creation, in terms of opportunity to get a building permit. So I think you're going to see me less. I appreciate that. But your point is well taken, and that's why we noted in our report. We understand, but it's really at the discretion of you folks. Well, if you're not, you're still comfortable.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. We have a move. Oh, you have a question?
Yes, that just came to my mind. Being new to this group, what typically happens then with retained lands? I'm seeing that as a common thing. These severances where there are 3, 4, or however many lots, and then say in this example, 85 acres. Does that also meet some sort of criteria in terms of conservation, or where where would it be going
It
for land use, or is that ultimately up to whoever
could be
retains
severed, it could
the land?
it could be severed one day,
Mhm.
or it could be sold as an entity and have a large dwelling on it. It's up to, quite
It all
frankly, it's up to
depends.
the owner,
Right,
as long as they have access to the road and they meet the criteria.
thank you. Okay, that's clear.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in this instance, retained, your bylaw and your official plan speaks to the requirement to impede frontage required and also, minimum lot size. We've noted the large pond wetland area in the back. That would make it almost impossible to sever again. I mean, the retained has just over 60 meters frontage. So to answer your question specifically on this one, it will likely always belong to whoever buys it with the acreage.
Mhm.
And, unless there's a scenario where there's some road put through and back for it to develop, but each of the lots must front on a municipally maintained road that has 6 meters frontage. And I'm going to guess that that would be very cost prohibitive to do that.
Okay, oh, good
Thank
question. Have a move on the seconder, please. Steve and Bill.
Consent application C 2024-10 to B 2024-12 submitted by Tulip Geomatics on behalf of 1003-28150 Ontario Inc., requesting permission to create 3 new lots. The approved conditional upon the completion of the standard conditions listed in the notice of decision.
All in favor? And just give Mr. Curtin a couple of minutes. He's just excused himself for a minute to be back in 2 or 3. Thank you. That's not a problem. What an exercise, Steve. So we've got B 2024-13 to B 2024-25. Tulip Geomatics on behalf of 185-1477 Ontario Inc., which is what now is vacant. It's at the corners of, it starts at the corner of Corbeil and Bertha Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The consent sever application is for the purpose of creating 13 lots with frontage on Corbeil Road and on Bertha Road. The report that our company, our firm produced on page 7, I provided a diagram of the original severances from a year or so ago. When we came forward with that, it was always the intention that if the studies that were required confirmed what we hoped and suspected, that we would come back to the committee for further lot creation. So the work that was done last year, and if those around the committee have seen the site, you'll notice some wells capped. Those wells were put into the corners of the property for our hydrogeological study to confirm that there was adequate water quantity and quality to service 13 lots. That's a requirement under the official plan. And in addition to that, our clients contracted a firm to do a full traffic analysis study on road, which I know Mr. Curtin will cover in his report. Unusually thorough in terms of identifying appropriate driveway locations. I hadn't seen that before in traffic studies. But they went that extra step to suggest where appropriate entrances, ingress and egress to the lots would be. The terrain is flat and clear. I'm assuming you haven't been around East Ferris my entire life. I'm assuming it was once a farm. It appears to be that way, and it's certainly in an area that's popular for rural residential right now. And we're hoping that the committee will see fit to move forward with the creation of these lots. customers for the Four Seasons Club and things that are happening here in the Port Town Center. So you do have the opportunity, the option when roads are existing, that you can do this level of lot creation through consent as opposed to planned subdivision. Planned subdivision is typically required where you have a new road constructed, or you have services that's can be owned by the municipality that require special registration for the planned subdivision. In this case, it's a pretty straightforward, we believe, consent. There are no natural heritage features. There is one pocket in the large lot 7 that is well at the back of the property that is a regulated pocket from the Conservation Authority. But again, the intent is that these would be homes that would be built closer to Corkville Road and with the driveways directly. I'm sure Mr. Kirby has provided the policy analysis that we're happy to answer any direct questions about the proposal. Do you have any?
Anybody have questions?
Because it,
Right?
because it's an existing road,
Pardon me?
because they're on an existing road.
Yes.
Are there any concerns with the fire department or the roads department as far as entrances or?
I think Greg could probably answer that if you've analyzed the traffic study. Have you?
Get anything from that?
Yeah, so the traffic study has a schedule as well as a table with information on where ideal driveway locations would be. And some of the lots have a lot of options, some of the lots have more or less just one option. But they've identified, so whenever you look at entrances, you have to consider the speed limit on the road and then the sightline distance between an entrance location and like the last point that it's kind of visible. And then that distance changes depending on the speed limit on the road. So Transplan did that analysis and identified those driveway locations. We've reviewed studies from Transplan often in the past, and they've always done good work. I would suggest that if the committee approves these applications, we add a condition, which I recommended in my report, that a copy of that Transplan report be passed along to our Director of Public Works. He's the one who issues entrance permits for new driveway locations. And so having that as a reference point would not bind him to those locations, but I would say heavily inform him as to what the ideal locations would be for that.
It's kind of where I was going with it. And nothing from our fire department.
We don't circulate the fire department typically on these applications, but what concern would you have?
No, I just, whether they had any concerns or wouldn't I?
From my years on, I can't see them being an issue. I can think of a number of cases down the end of Cedar Bay Road where you got to go on private property and private roads. The access is a little dicey. Even where Lauren lives, the access to some of the houses would be dicey. Compared to this is flat and they'd all have a driveway. That's all you require. Steve?
Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Corbeil, the official plan and the provincial policy statement very much encourages development on existing roads for exactly those reasons, in addition to emergency services, garbage pickup, school busing, things like that, that already exists. It's still found all those issues. So
Anybody? Lauren?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, with the water study, I'm gonna ask a really difficult question, okay? So, all right.
I hope I can answer.
Yeah, okay. So is it a bit of a conflict of interest? Because you have been dealing with the Godry Carpentry for a long time.
Yeah.
That you've done this water study and have been working with them for a long time. So I have that question. And then at the end, the Ministry of Environment, do they provide a report? Do they do a peer review of this report?
So the first part of your question is, I didn't do this study. It was done by Matthew Parfit, who is a professional engineer. And the I don't know if any of you know Mr. Parker, but professional engineers will not put their stamp on anything that is not accurate, valid and tested. And it's the equivalent of putting any professional designation behind something. So if the hydrogeological study had come back and said there's inadequate water or dirty water or whatever, we would not be here tonight. We would inform our clients and say this is not doable, and they move on to something else. The testing that came back actually exceeded the levels that are required. So there's good potable water there that's required. As for the conflict, we have a challenge, as most municipalities do, where there is a real lack of professional services. So Mr. Carpet is what I would call a part-time employee with us. He's on an as and when needed basis, semi-retired, as is transplant, ironically, who did the traffic study. They came out of retirement for Mr. Dugan to do that for them. They don't generally do a lot of work in the area. So it's getting harder and harder to find people. So I think the answer to your question is that he put his PN stamp on that. That is his seal that this is accurate and true, and he's putting his professional license on. The second part, lost it already on that round.
Ministry of Environment, so I just saw at the very end that there's reports that go to them. Do they report back?
If they had any issues or concerns, they would. You as a committee and ultimately as a council, it happens more generally in a council setting when you're dealing with a large developments, a hospital or something, where if you wanted to have that peer reviewed, you could have that, you could send that away to a third party and to have it done. I won't speak for the ministry, but I imagine that they saw the numbers that produced and that they exceeded the requirements under the D-series guidelines and we're satisfied.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Bill, you have any concerns?
No, it looks pretty straightforward to me.
I thought.
I'll tell you.
You're good?
Good, thanks.
Warren, you're okay? Frank, Steve, you're good? Have an overview, please.
Sure. So we didn't receive any correspondence from any of the agencies we work with. We also didn't receive any correspondence from anyone in the neighborhood that was circulated. So a lot of the points that in my report have already been touched on in the discussion that you had beforehand. But just to kind of hammer home one of the reasons why I ultimately supported the application is both our official plan and provincial policy heavily weigh on directing development towards like an efficient use of resources, existing roadways, existing places rather than unnecessary or uneconomical expansion of services, which is the word that the PPS uses. We're looking at one of our major roads in the community, a nice piece of property with limited challenges as far as environmental features go, adequate driveway locations for all the areas, a water study that was completed by a qualified professional that supports the level of development that's being proposed. It's every kind of facet that we need to look at has a supporting document associated with it that's been completed by a professional that, in my opinion, is adequate to support and approval. When it comes to things like the professional studies, we work with a lot of different professionals, different engineers that specialize in different types of work. In this case, transportation engineering for the traffic study, or water resources engineering for the water quality study. And it's really bad habit, I think, to get in the practice of questioning people's credentials. These people are bound to professional organizations. They have a strict code of conduct to adhere to. And, I very much would take, Mr. Parfit's documentation as his professional kind of opinion. So I don't have a lot of concerns with potential conflicts, although I know they can appear that way. But he's someone who's submitted to many studies for different landowners in the community and has kind of a well-respected background of work. So with regards to the traffic study, I think Transplan laid it out very clearly in in both their table and their schedule associated with it. But I would recommend that we add the condition to provide a copy of that to our Director of Public Works if the committee does choose to approve it. But otherwise, I have no concerns with it. It does seem like a lot of lots for consent. But as was previously mentioned, one of the major defining factors for plan of subdivision is the ability to control servicing and different infrastructure that's being built. And when that doesn't exist, to me, there's no real need to go through it when we still get the same studies and the same background information. So I don't have any concerns with the application.
Good, thank you. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Stephanie and Bill.
Consent applications B 2024-13 to B 2024-25 submitted by Geomatics on behalf of 1851477 Ontario Inc. requesting permission to create 13 new lots be approved conditional upon the completion of the standard conditions listed in the notice of decision.
All in favor? Thank you. Please see for your presentation. Next we have certificate of cancellation. Ryan John Naylor, Andy Josepha Zuba, Quakeway Road. The purpose of this request is to cancel a previously granted consent certificate in order to allow the merging of adjacent properties owned by the applicants.
So this one here, we don't have the applicants before us. We just have the request from them. This is something that this committee has never dealt with before. It's something that's actually brand new in the Planning Act as of 2022. I've included the map on here just to kind of explain their request. But it's a really unique type of thing. It doesn't have any circulation requirements in the Planning Act. Notices don't have to go to the neighborhood. It's just something that essentially says they make a request to council or committee, and then the committee decides, and that's the end of it. So what they're asking is, so when a severance application happens, a certificate gets issued for that severance, and that allows the lawyer to register the lot and create it. And then there's an ability associated with that certificate to always kind of reestablish the lot. In some cases, this causes issues for people when they want to merge that land with adjacent land. So what's happening here is on this diagram from the applicant, they've indicated the subject parcel. So that is the parcel they're applying for a certificate of cancellation for. And they also own the adjacent two parcels that they've identified the PIN numbers for. So the ones that end in 0042 and 0041. They are trying to consolidate all of these existing lots into one lot. And the reason why they want to do that is because they're in the middle of applying for a managed forest designation. And you need a certain amount of lots or land area to apply for a managed forest designation. And they can't consolidate them right now because of the consent certificate associated with this parcel. So this consent was only granted a few years ago. But essentially what they're asking of you is the authority to nullify this consent. So you're basically, if you approved it, you would basically be allowing them to just consolidate all this land and then never have the authority to reestablish this without coming back to the committee for a new severance application. So you're kind of doing like a reverse severance, let's say.
Joining up.
Yeah.
Does that add?
Did they not have to come back to us for lot addition? Just bring them all back together again?
So you don't need a planning authority's approval to join two parcels. What you sometimes see when we get lot addition applications, it's because they want to change the boundaries of parcels and add just a portion of one to another. And so say you had, say on this one, for example, part 2, that big L-shaped one. If they wanted to add the back part but leave the front part, then they would need a severance application to do a lot addition for part of that lot, right, Frank? But if they want to combine two full parcels together, it's just an exercise at the land registry office to register the parcels together. With the exception of when a consent or being a lot on a plan of subdivision prevents the ability to do that. So that's what they're asking for here is the ability to consolidate existing parcels without changing the boundaries of any of those parcels. But they need to nullify this consent application in order to go through that legal exercise to do that.
It's a weird one.
It's a very weird one. Yeah, it's one that most people don't want to give up their right to establish a severance because it gives them more flexibility to, potentially do something within the future. But because of this managed forest designation that they want, which gives them certain tax benefits, then they need to have more land associated with one parcel. So they need to nullify this consent in order to do that.
So managed forests, is that they're planting trees?
It's something, to be honest, I don't know a lot about it, but it's a designation you can apply for with MPAC, where they'll assess your lot at a different rate. And you'll end up paying less in taxes, and you have certain obligations about maintaining forested cover along the lot and not clearing certain amounts of area and stuff like that. But I don't know the specifics, to be honest.
It's like
I know a place down south where actually they're a tree farm,
right.
right? So they plant basically the same idea. They plant trees, but they're harvesting.
Sure.
So they're still designated as a farm. They're in just out of Hamilton. And designated as a farm, but they actually work in the city.
And if they're a farm by provincial law, they pay 25% of a residential tax. Yeah.
So just hypothetical, Greg. We will pass, I'm sure. But if they sell that, could the new owners come back and ask for a severance again?
If they wanted, if they combine all these together and then sell it, and a new owner wanted to reestablish this lot pattern, then yes, they would need to come back to this committee to ask for a new severance.
But they could, right?
They could if they want to, and then it depends on our planning policy at the time as to whether that gets approved.
It's not like they could ask for a cancellation again to go back to this.
No, so once it's merged, if the consent is gone, then they need to start the process all over again to ask for the lot creation.
It's a lot of money for nothing.
Warren, you had a question?
I was the same as Frank.
Okay, all right.
Is there a downside?
Downside to approving it?
Yeah.
I mean, not really. I don't think it's
As long as they own it, but if they wanted to sell it, depending on the size of the lots.
Exactly,
Yeah.
where is that on Quickly?
the address is
Yeah, just got Quakeway Road here.
just the only downside that I could really think to this is if there was a specific area in the municipality where we felt it was in the public interest to have a very consistent lot pattern. And then we thought it was a bad idea that there were less lots in that area. That's really the only thing I could think of. It's a very unique process that doesn't happen very often at all. And there were various workarounds to achieve the same outcome previously in the Planning Act, but they simplified the process in 2022 to allow the people to apply for these certificates.
No, it was, yeah, right.
Interesting.
There's been some interesting laws over the years. I know for a while, if you owned a lot and you bought the lot next to it, it automatically became one large lot. There was no differential. So, I mean, that was on the way.
That still happens sometimes.
Yeah. And people didn't realize it, and they left two lots from the same person. It became one large lot.
There was a change in the Planning Act recently to deal with this issue similar to that, or situation similar to that, where if what people would often do in the past is say a husband and wife had property, they would often hold one property in both people's names and hold the adjacent property in just one person's name because it would avoid the merging because the title isn't the same. But what would often happen then is if one person passed away, then they would go off title, and then inadvertently you'd have both parcels have the same name because the second spouse was removed from the initial property, and then those would merge. But when this change was made, there was also a provision added that mergers because of death of joint tenants no longer basically qualify, and you could reestablish those lots.
So let's hope it saves them enough on their property.
What's that, sorry?
The cost of this would save them enough on their property taxes.
I think that's also a passion of theirs. I met them once. I was walking in this area and I met them, right? And they talked about the trees. So it's a passion of theirs, not, I think a tax saving is okay, but I think tree management is a passion. Yeah, so.
Any correspondence and
You
information?
have a resolution. You're in the secondary. The certificate of cancellation request received from Brian Naylor and Camden Zuba for their properties on Quake Way Road be approved.
Correspondence and information items, anything of note? Anybody? In camera, we don't require in camera. We have a mover and a second for adjournment, please. Frank and Bill.
Gotta get on there somewhere.
City of Augusta meeting adjourned at 7:31 PM and meet again on June 19th, 2024.
All in favor? Pass. Thank you very much. Went faster than I thought. Wasn't sure. Never know, eh?
You'll take half.
Nobody showed up.
Yeah, well, that's it.
No, it's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah, these are the other ones.
Gotcha.